Next Wave Gaming. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in for this week's Next Wave Gaming North American Smite Pro League review for Week 6, the 5th week of gameplay here in the Pro League. With me today, I have Crimson White from Next Wave Gaming, and we have Jaco Malfoy from Thirst. How you doing, Jaco? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. We had some great games today, and some great games all week. So let's just get straight into it with Crimson's favorite picks and bans. So take us away, Crimson.
So we had 10 gods that were really heavily favored this week, but none that were really out of the blue. Nemesis had 5 bans and 3 picks. Freya with 5 bans and 4 picks. Thor with 6 bans and 3 picks. Murky with 3 bans and 6 picks. Apollo with 5 bans and 4 picks. Kukulkan pre-nerf with 2 bans and 7 picks. Athena also with 2 bans and 7 picks. Rom with 2 bans and 6 picks. And the only 2 gods with 100% involvement were Jeb and Ra. Unsurprisingly for both.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, what do you think it really is that makes Ra so potent?
Just the fact that he has really good damage and still really great support while having great mobility at the same time. Long-range snipes, it just doesn't really get too much better than what Ra's kit provides.
He has a little bit of utility of everything. He's got a slow, he's got damage, he's got heal, and he has burst.
Oh yeah, the man of many talents.
Everybody loves the Ra.
Which do you think of these is going to fall off the most within the next when you finally have the patch update to the SPL?
Probably Kukulkan. Kukulkan's like still strong with his tornado, but I mean it's not as effective as in like, oh, I stepped to a tornado late game, I'm pretty much dead if I'm a carry. But I mean, I'm all cool with the Kukulkan like nerves. Like thank Jesus, there's more than 2 gods in the mid lane right now, unless they're like picked or banned. So.
I have a question for you. What do you think really brought to the rise of Kukulkan? Because before the SPL, Kukulkan didn't see a lot of play. I mean, MLC wanted to play Kukulkan, and then Kagwa always told him no. It was back then it was Ao Kuang. And then we got nothing changed. Nothing changed about Kukulkan's kit, and then, or even back when he was out, and all of a sudden he's being played forever. Is it because of nerfs and other things to other gods, or are people just learning how to play one of the easiest gods in the game?
Yeah, it's a little bit of learning how to play one of the easiest gods of the game, and just kind of the way that like mid kind of changed. Like before, you could kind of like 1v1 fight your mid laner, but right now it's kind of like you can't really fight your mid laner at all because they have the jungle there, the support there. So it's more like a farming kind of base thing. And when like the big team fights come out where mid can finally shine, I mean, Kukulkan just has it all, the big AoE damage, and then just pow, Spirit's Tempest.
Well, the Bush and Hurrywind were always playing Ao Kuang when he was back as Ao Kuang. I mean, Hurrywind pretty much only played Ao Kuang in play-ins leading up to the SPL. And the Bush could probably play anything, but his Kukulkan, he's just a very good farmer. So, and Kukulkan has one of the easiest wave clears in the game. Now, a lot of people called him pre-nerf, the traffic controller of Smite, because if you stand in his tornado, you're going to take damage for 3 seconds, which they're nerfing down to 2. But Kukulkan still has easy wave clear. So I think that if you want to play passive, Kukulkan or Ra, but Ra can pretty much be played at any playstyle, are your go-to gods. Now, an interesting development for me was the rise of Freya. Freya receiving 5 bans and 4 picks this week, and not all of them are coming into the jungle, notably Allied playing Freya in the ADC.
Yeah, without a doubt, plus Fatalis. I mean, you don't even really need like too many damaging items on Freya. You just kind of get Fatalis, demonic grips, like, hey, I'm just going to kill you while moving at the speed of light.
Yep, and you can't get away from me because Fatalis, oh look, you got away from me? Wait, ultimate. Oh, wait, you're dead, and now I have damage on 5 of your other teammates.
Yeah, and then you can banish and keep up. Yeah.
Oh, wait, now I'm going to lose the engagement and banish, run away. Bye.
Yep.
Because I have speed buff too, because I'm Freya.
Plus, she's really flexible now, too. Like, ADC or jungle, I mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's usually teams like stack physical, too, so.
Well, and that's got to help in the pick ban phrase, right? You can pick up Freya early. Is that going ADC? Is that going jungle? Oh, look, they banned out Rom? Okay, well, Freya ADC, and we'll go a Hunbot's jungle, or a Mercury jungle, whatever. Like, it helps with the variability. Kind of like Ra. You can pick up Ra, and he can go solo, or he can go mid.
Yeah, very effective in both roles.
Right, you can play him either way.
2 characters really on the rise that we saw this week are Kali and Guan Yu. Kali receiving 1 ban and 4 picks, which I think 3 of them were Dagars, and then Guan Yu receiving 0 bans but 6 picks. I think that people are finally realizing Guan Yu's potential after the buff to Convictions. He does very good damage, and his ultimate, in which he's CC immune and can cover huge distances, is a very undervalued ability, and I think people are finally starting to see Guan Yu. But Kali I did not see coming. Why do you think Kali is on the scene?
I don't think we're seeing a rise of Kali. I think we're seeing a spreading out of the God Pool, going, Gars says we are locked. No matter what we do, we're fine. Why don't I try Kali and see if this guy's actually viable? You have nothing to lose at this point. Oh, look, we won? Let me do it again. Oh, look, we won? Let me do it again. Oh, look, we lost. Okay, my bad. You know, it's a flavor of the month. It's trying what you can try because you have nothing to lose by doing it.
I pretty much had like the same opinion with that earlier. Like, I think the God's strong late game, of course, but in her early games, like, okay if you get heavy hammer, but I just think Cogred are just like so dominant right now that the Dagars can really just kind of do whichever. But I mean,
and he's Dagars.
Yeah, he's Dagars. At least he paid for at least one game. At least he paid for one game.
Yeah, he did pay for it one game.
That's true. And last thing I want to talk about in pick bans is we finally saw the bug. Arachne was played in
both
SPL.
scenes.
In both scenes. And she was played solo and jungle, so I guess she didn't have fantastic success, but she has great burst. Her one's a pretty good heal, good mobility, and she, I guess, now is a new traffic controller of Smite because she can shoot her webs all over lanes in the jungle, and then when the spiders pop, everyone knows where you are. It kind of says, hey, I don't really need to buy a ward, we have Arachne.
Yeah, I think she's like good in solo lane. I'm not so sure about the whole jungle as we saw there before. Like that jungle play was really couldn't really do too much. Kind of ulted to run away more than actually do anything, and no real CC for ganks or anything. It was a mess.
Part of the reason I think Arachne had problems this week is she's still new. You can learn how to play a god. But to learn how to play a god at a competitive level is a different story. You need to be able to know them backwards, forwards. You need to know how much damage can you take from that god, how much damage can you deal to that god, know what your matchup is. And there just simply hasn't been enough time since the last patch for people to come to that conclusion yet. They don't know yet. And so to be able to play a god effectively, you have to have that information. And nobody has that yet. I mean, we have some of the best players. Shing is one of the best solo laners out there. He was one of the best junglers. Lassus is phenomenal. Who played her in the jungle? Was it Unique?
It was Weekend, wasn't it?
Was it Weekend?
It was Weekend.
Okay, it was, I mean, you know, Weekend's a great player. Shing is a great player, but they don't know Arachne well enough. I mean, if you go to their streams, they're not playing Arachne every game to learn her. And it's going to be unfamiliar, unlike, you know, Thor, unlike even Serket or Freya. You know them a little more. You know what they can do. You know what they can take. You know how to get their escape and when you should go back in and when you shouldn't. It's going to take some time before Arachne is seen at a competitive level, if she's even viable.
I agree with that. Plus, I mean, like in Rank 2, people don't really pick really good team compositions that are good together. They just kind of pick whatever, so.
Right.
So, moving on to our weekly player scores. The first one we're going to cover this week are the carries. And Zapman was head and shoulders above everyone this week with player score 1785, followed up by Barracuda of Cog Prime at 1531. Sandshrew actually coming in third despite playing Aphrodite ADC. Please don't ever do that again.
You do get some healing in the ADC score. You get 15% of whatever healing you do in the ADC score. So,
still, Afro Ares duo lane. Twitch.
The man is an innovator.
Yeah, to be fair, he only got 29 points from the healing. Yeah. All the healing that he did all week. So
he had 1449. Allied went to 1386. Snoopy, who himself had a very large fall from grace, going to 1377. And Astra Squared of your own team Thirst, bringing up the rear at 1290.
And I've got Zapman at 1786 and Snoopy at 1378. So just a little bit of rounding difference in the two in the two formulas we've got. Same formula, just different decimal place. Barracuda was leading up until Friday.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that makes me laugh is Anatoly actually has the top ADC score this week. Although only played one game, so you can't really count it. But I find that incredibly amazing.
Yeah, he played pretty well that game, too.
Yeah, he
so
did.
that game thing away from him, that was a good play.
Yeah. If we turn over to the player damage this week, Zapman in week 6 did 882 player damage per minute across, across 2 games and 62 minutes. That is ridiculous player damage. He had 54k player damage in 2 games, and Barracuda had 39k player damage in 3. The player damage that man put out was ridiculously high.
The hyper-aggressive duo lane is working pretty well for Dig, as we'll get to later. Dare to Care also had a pretty darn good week himself. But Zapman's always been known as an aggressive player, even when he had a different support. Zap is he's the guy to do the level 2 fight every time. He's the guy who wants to box you 1v1, and more often than not, it works.
No, maybe he's just really intimidating. I don't really know what's going on in the dual lane, but maybe just gives him that little evil eye, and that's it.
Yeah, I've never had the unfortunate honor to lane against Zap.
I have.
I apologize.
How did that go?
Oh, well.
It's
I think
okay.
I
We
went
all have those
0
moments.
10 and we surrendered at 10.
Yeah, Zapman is an impressive player. Astro Squared doing well this week for basically a first week in the SPL, only playing 2 games, but not doing poorly for a first week, synergizing with Thirst, landing at a second week in the SPL. Sorry, landing at 1291. When we've had scores in the EU, as low as the 1,000, so doing better than a lot of the EU hunters, and Snoopy this week falling off at 1378. That COG game really set him back.
It did. And that COG game, I think, by itself cost him first place overall. As we move into the overall stats, Zapman leading at 1688, Snoopy in second place instead of first at 1684, Barracuda at 1526, Allied at 1452, Samshrew, who is the only hunter to have played a healer in the SPL, at 1215, and Astro Squared at 1145. So Snoopy's bad week was bad enough to knock him from first, and he was in first by over 100 last week.
Yep, absolutely. I just want to point out that Samshrew has an average of 58.2 player damage or player healing per game. But if we go over to the stats that ADCs really matter, that ADCs really value, which are player damage and structure damage, Zapman leading in player damage per minute. Zapman leading in player damage per minute at 691, and structure damage per minute sitting at 140. Snoopy, not far behind him at 625 player damage per minute, and at 151 structure damage per minute. So doing more structure damage and a little bit less player damage. It's interesting to see how the two numbers interact, and Zapman comes out on top.
People talk about CogRed having a terrible week. CogRed went 3-1 this week. Their one loss was to Cog. Now, granted, they got curb stomped, but their one loss this week was to Cog. So Snoopy can't just have one horrible game that completely threw off his entire week. Snoopy underperformed this week in comparison to his previous weeks. Now, 1377 is not a score to joke at. I mean, it's a good score. It's just Zap went off this week. Samshrew had a pretty good week in comparison with his previous ones. And Barra continued being consistent. Barracuda had a 1531 for the week and a 1526 overall. Barracuda is the definition of consistency for Hunter in NA.
Absolutely. Yeah, he just does the same thing over and over again, it's got to be nice for COG to know we are going to get consistent performance from that Hunter. He's not going to have terrible games, and he might have a breakout game, but he's going to stay consistent. It's got to be at least a small sense of security for them, knowing that they have that consistency, that consistent damage, that consistent structure damage over in the duel. And we all know Barracuda's favorite place is in lane. So, and I'll steal from you, Crimson. Let's go on into the support role. First place this week is going to be actually Aurora, coming in at 2118. Dare to Care landing at 2042. Elbro Chacho sitting down there at 1794. Then we got Pain de Viande coming in at 1678 in his first week of the SPL. Jeff Hinla sitting in 1603. And, I'm sorry. Do I have that? And then, 1603. And then Ionic falling down to 1196. Not having a great game this week up against COG. Again, it shows that how much that game actually impacted them.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I still think Ionic, personally, I still think Ionic is the best support player in the world. Granted, his stats did not back me up this week, as Aurora went off. I mean,
pulling him up to third place. He went up to third place.
Fourth. You got
to tie for second.
Yeah, you got to tie for second.
He's in third place. He's in fourth place, but he's in third place.
So, when Dare to Care has his second 2,000 game or 2,000 score week, and we're not talking about Dare to Care, that tells you how well Aurora played this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
People always call him a Fenrir player, and that's what he plays. But Aurora led in player damage, which is not a score that normally people value as a support player. But his player damage was kind of nuts. He averaged 479 per minute, which is over 100 more than a known aggressive support player, El Brochacho, of your own team Thirst. So, Aurora just went off. It's plain and simple. He's a very, very good support player. I don't think we have a bad support player in NA.
I would completely agree with you. The number that I want to really look at, though, is his damage mitigation per minute. Damage mitigation is where it's at for supports. If you are taking more damage than you're mitigating, you're falling behind in your build because you're not getting the items that you need to prevent your health from dwindling down. He has 928.7 damage mitigated per minute and 898 damage taken per minute. Flip that over to Ionic, who did not have a very good week this week. He has 345 mitigation for 70 taken. The people who are mitigating, who have a closer number, are performing better because they're not dying as much. I mean, he died. Maybe that's not entirely true. He did die a total of 19 times, but only an average of 4.7 times per game across 4 games. Got 11 kills, but over 50 assists, the most number of assists this week, almost double the second highest from Dare to Care at 31. I mean, Aurora went off, just like you said.
I mean, I was really impressed, too, by his Ares play. Some of those ults that he got were, perfect timing. Perfect timing. Right place and everything. Yeah, he was top damage for his whole team after that game, too. I was like, oh, man. Aurora up in this piece.
So, as a Thirst player, what do you think of El Brochacho's progression as a player? He was one of the newer additions coming into the team. It was, if I remember correctly, it was you and Wolfie and Nanton who were and then Fusion OP were the original 4, and then you brought in El Brochacho. So, what do you think of his progression as a player? As this was easily his best week in the SPL.
Well, believe it or not, I was actually the newest person to come in. I was like the latest person. It was kind of like, oh crap, we need a mid player. I guess we'll get Jacob Malfoy. But yeah, I think the reason why his score's probably better this week is just like more faith in the team in general and more people following up on his grand sacrifices that he likes to make. I mean, overall, he's a good player. He had some like really crazy Geb games where he was still taking damage, still mitigating damage, while still dealing insane damage himself. But I mean, that might be the Geb god, but hey, he played it right. He definitely played it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I distinctly remember a game back in Week 5 of the SPL where every taunt he made, someone died. I mean, the guy knows how to play supports. Now, Thirst overall has struggled, but I really do think y'all are beginning to coalesce this week. I saw a lot of flashes of performance, and El Brochacho's stats clearly show it. So.
And your own stats, which we're going to come to here next.
Oh, snap.
Looking over at Dare to Care, let's go throw out a shot to our second place overall, or second place this week, our first place overall. Mitigating 918, taking 890 in the week, mitigating 827 overall, taking 810 overall. Just doing a phenomenal job of mitigation. Actually, looks like one of the only players besides Jeff Hinla to actually mitigate more than he's taken overall. Dare to Care mitigating 827, taking 810. Jeff Hinla mitigating 727, taking 709. So good performances coming out from pretty much every NA support this week.
An individual battle I'm looking forward to next week is between the COG supports, because they're currently tied for second overall in for supports at 1778. And I'm pretty sure that Jeff, the Sex Hinla, doesn't like being behind younger Eonic.
Especially not on a player score that he helped to develop.
So,
All right, so your overall scores for support, first place is Dare to Care at 1927. Second place is 1778 is Eonic. Tied for second place with him is the other COG boy at 1778, Jeff Hinla. Third place, or fourth place, depending on how you want to look at it, is Aurora. Fourth place is Pain de Viande, and Aurora's score, was 1757. Pain de Viande's score is 1693. And El Brachacho in last at 1630, though 1630 not a bad score in the slightest. 1400, right around where you want to be at a competitive level. So all the supports in NA doing a phenomenal job this week. So why don't we head into mid, where we get to talk about the praises of one particular player for the week.
Is it me?
It is.
So our top mid for the week is our guest, Draco Malfoy, at 1465, followed by Gnaw of Team Digitox at 1458. Then we have MLC Stealth of COG Prime at 1418, Hardy Wind of the Chunks at 1406, The Boosh with an off week at 1290, and Incontinentia changing to his new role in mid lane at Bring Up the Rear with 1248. So Jacob, what do you think it was about this week that led you really to shine the brightest?
You know, every week I'm always surprised that I'm doing decent on the stats, so I mean, that's a question I would probably have to ask you guys more than anything.
All right. Well, if we look at just numbers, the first thing I always try to look at is farm. And your farm is somewhat low, but you're not in last. Herwin behind you by 1 GPM for the week. But then we go over to player damage. You have 52k player damage. Boosh had 40k player damage this week. MLC had 45k player damage. But what really, really makes the difference is the player damage per minute. You ended up averaging 627 player damage per minute. And the reason, let me just say the reason why that matters is because 52k player damage across 90 minutes is far different than 52k player damage across 83 minutes or 40 minutes. It depends on how long you play. Heroin playing 133 minutes and landing at 92k player damage, coming out with 693 player damage per minute. You were just behind him at 627 player damage per minute. But the other stat that helps you out a little bit is your healing per minute, because you, as a mid laner, you do get credit for the healing you do, and you did 152.8 player healing per minute. And you also did a total of 1100 structure damage per minute. So you're doing a little bit of everything, where other players are focusing in maybe on one particular number.
So what do you think is the main meta shift that you've seen over the past 5 weeks? As an insight of a competitive mid laner, you're the first, at least for NA, you're the first person in the SPL we've had on a video. So what do you think is your real insight of the changing of the meta in mid lane over the past 5 weeks?
The only thing that's really changed probably the most is the mid and jungler pretty much being like best friends, sharing pretty much everything together nowadays. It's like, hey, you want a mid wave, man, take that mid wave. Hey, man, we'll do back harpies, let's do back harpies. You know what, we can even do the speed buff together. Mid and jungler are just pretty much like the best of friends, and if you mess with the enemy mid laner, the enemy jungler is also gonna be there because, you can't mess with someone's best bud.
Right.
But besides that, that's pretty much mid lane right now. It's a farm fest, but the jungle and mid are farming together.
Okay, well, let's look at the overall scores now that we've talked about weekly. First place is going to remain the Boosh at 1546. Second place is going to be MLC Stealth at 1412. Third place is going to go to Jaco Malfoy, coming up to third place this week at 1346. Na sitting at 1328 in fourth place. Then we fall to 1268 Hurlwind for the Chunks, and Incon falling to 1258 for Snipe. So that covers up our mid lane. Why don't we head into the solo lane? Jaco, why don't you do us the honors of giving us our first place for the week?
Alright, here we go, boys. And in rank 1, we have Omegatron coming in at 1867. What a strong performance from this player. And in second place, we have Shing at 1713. And in third place, the Cyclone Spin at 1574. In fourth place, Kiki or Na. Check out this score. 1524. And in fifth place, we have Divius, the kid himself, 1458. And sixth, but not least, Osmos at 1433.
That was the best score rating I've ever heard.
And that's solo lane, boys and girls.
Thank you very much, Jaco. I loved that. That was amazing.
No problem.
We're gonna just ask you to come record our scores, and we'll just hit play on a soundboard, and that'll roll for us every week. There's only one more week of the SPL, but
I got you every week. Don't worry.
That would be great.
That'd be awesome. Alright, so let's actually talk about some stats, because I gotta pull myself together.
Oh, that was great. Omega coming out with 5.3 kills per game, and only 2 deaths over 3 games. What? He went crazy. This is the second week in a row going crazy. He played phenomenally well last week, and he did so again this week.
And people wonder why Cog Prime went undefeated this week.
His Guan Yu was scary. I think, without a doubt, his Guan Yu pretty much carried that game for Cog Prime. They're looking kind of iffy, and then Omegatron's Guan Yu kind of came and was like, "Yo, hop on my horse. We're going to the finish line, boys."
They played Guan Yu against you guys today, didn't they?
Wait, we were against Cog Red.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, I apologize. You had videos to deal with.
Yeah.
That's no less fun. But
Guan Yu's healing. Have you guys seen that? It heals for much as Ra.
Yeah, his healing per minute is 93.1. 93.1. He had 199.4 healing this week as Guan Yu.
Yeah,
What?
that is just crazy.
It's up
Almost
every
as
3
crazy
seconds.
It's almost as crazy as Shock's self-heal, but it seems like the only one who plays Shock in the solo is Shang. But
That's his debut god. I mean, come on.
yeah, it's Shang and Omega really played well this week. But I think that of the things I'd want to talk about in solo, Divios isn't leading in farm. What? I think he's led in farm every single week for NA, even when he hasn't led overall. Because Shang led for 1 week, and I think Divios still outfarmed him. Divios, in my humble opinion, is the best farmer in the SPL, NA, or EU. He just knows how to clear waves, but they weren't getting the kills in that lane, and his stats clearly showed it.
Well, and we've harped on it before on Twitter and videos, talking with individual people everywhere. Kills don't win games. Structures and objectives win games. And Shing coming out with the top structure damage this week at 98.83, and Omega falling down at 28.5, but making up for that with his healing, his damage taken, and his damage mitigation. He had similar damage mitigation to Jeff Hinla. We said Jeff Hinla had something like 727 damage taken, 720 damage mitigation. Omega has 740 damage taken and 641 mitigation. He's providing that extra front line that Cog needs to sustain the fights.
I would still like to point out that Kiki the White Mage had the highest healing in solo at 235.8.
How did he become the White Mage?
That was a title Crimson gave him as of last week. Just being a healer.
Oh, just being a healer. Oh, okay.
I originally called Kiki the Tower Shredder because he was always known as a split pusher. I think I would see when he played for Snipe. When he first started, I saw him on New Wall split push and Cheese Wall split push, take 2 towers and a Phoenix in the middle of a Gold Fury fight. because he was Cheesewa.
Sounds
But
about right.
Kiki is getting a lot of healing, but Snipe is not getting a lot of wins out of it. Snipe went 1-2 this week. In a week they really, really desperately needed wins. Now, when we'll talk about this a little bit later, Snipe needs almost a perfect storm to be a top 2 seed.
Yep.
So, Osmos, it was his first week, so there are definitely some growing pains. But 1433 is definitely enough score to shake your stick at.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, even in support score functions a little differently, but solo score 1400, 1500 is right around where you want to be. So to see him there on week 1, I mean, where if we compare, I'm gonna pull up Nas week 1 score here.
Oh boy.
Nas week 1 score. Let's pull that up. I got that right here. Looking at the mid laner for Na, his week 1 score was 1146.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
One vast improvement from Na. I mean, we already covered
for
that,
sure.
but vast improvement from Na, and outperforming Fusion OP, who had 1219, 1292, 1359, and 1318 as of week 4. Or sorry, as of week 5. With the overall of 1300, not including this week. So he's performing a little bit better for Thirst. From your perspective, are you seeing that? Are you seeing that difference? I mean, of course, you guys had Cog Red this week, so rip. But
yeah.
Are you feeling that difference? Are you seeing the difference that Osmos brings in the solo?
Yeah, I don't really have too much interaction with solo for the most part,
Uh-huh.
but I agree for sure that he's definitely performing pretty well, and I think overall the team is doing better because of it. So I mean, I think he's an excellent addition, and once he gets more experience with the SPL and all that, he'll be up there.
Awesome.
So, moving on to our overall scores for the week, Divya still takes the cake at 1739, but it's a closer gap than it used to be. After 2 very good weeks, Omega moves into second place at 1624, followed very closely by Big Dig's Shing at 1619, and Kiki the White Mage coming in at 4th with 1501. Cyclone Spin of the Chunks, who played a very good Naja the week before and did not play it this week though, at 1453, and then Osmos bringing up the rear after 1 week of play at 1433, but he is definitely within striking distance of Cyclone Spin. So, as we move over into the jungle, Jacob, would you like to do our jungle scores?
I'm doing jungle scores now.
Scores.
All right, here we go, boys. All right, coming in at rank 1, Dagaz with a wait. Do we do ADC?
No, you're gonna use the hybrid score.
We're still using the hybrid score?
Yeah,
Right,
still use the hybrid score. Continue, please, sir.
Alright. Okay, so we're restarting it now?
No, just continue.
Oh, all right,
I'm gonna leave that
go.
because that was common.
All right. Coming in at rank 1, Dagaz with a score of 1534. Coming in rank 2, Eek 1530. Coming in at 3rd place, Lassus at 1502. 4th place, Wolfie 2032. Coming in a score of 1425. And 5th place, Understir coming in at 1419. 6th place, Week 3N 1303.
So,
man.
Polygars, or Thorgars, as we prefer to call him, had a pretty good week in Clay. I mean,
Yeah.
1534 is not even close to his top score of a week, but still good enough to lead. But what I want to talk about is Mr. Freya. Unique loves his Freya. He plays it well. He plays Nemesis well. He plays Thor well. He plays most of the competitive gods very well, and I think this was his coming out party.
Unique's play this week was awesome. Especially Chunks had some rough games, right? I mean, the games they ran Aphrodite ADC twice. Did not work. And then the one game where they picked a standard support, a standard ADC, they won it against Dig.
Yeah, it was against Dig. That was a big win for them.
Against Dig. I mean, they're pretty much locked out still. We have our top 4 teams, but to get a win against Dig is still good. If you're winning against Dig, you've got a chance against teams like Vicious and Delicious and Team Solid. You know what I mean?
Oh, without a doubt.
I'd be very concerned if I were the Ramblezos right now, or Team Salt, or Vicious and Delicious.
Whoever ends up making it. It's pretty much a lock for them, but we'll see what happens after this week.
I'd be very concerned because The chunks are starting to coalesce at the right time, and I think Thirst is starting to get there as well, as Wolfie finally hit a tower.
We
Yeah,
went
Wolf.
weeks and
Oh,
weeks
good
and weeks
lord,
without hitting
Wolfie
the
hit
tower.
a tower. I've been praying for this for weeks.
I'm glad it happened for you.
Yeah,
I,
we actually said in one video a few weeks ago, it's okay to hit a tower. It's allowed.
I'm surprised I've been hitting towers. Like, what towers have I been hitting? What in the world?
Well,
Most been like
yeah.
sneaking some like dragon pokes, you know what I'm saying? Like, wow, Swift Jet.
I really enjoy Wolfie's play as a jungle because he plays a kind of a support jungle, which we were talking about you playing a support mage. He plays things like Sun Wukong in the jungle. And I really do appreciate that because I miss the tank meta jungle. I mean, Lassus still plays Athena jungle, but I think he's the only one. I miss Polymere when Polymere was a thing. So I really do enjoy Wolfie's play as a jungle. And 1425 is much better than his other weekly scores. Now, Weekend, whom I predicted a couple weeks back as my player to watch whether or not Snipe succeeds, at 1303. Weekend really had a poor week. And even though, and it showed, Snipe went 1 and 2.
You should have predicted unique.
I should have.
Or
I thought it was Uknik.
Uknik.
Come on.
Uknik.
Uknik.
Either way.
It's like an orc name or something, you know? Like, I don't know.
That'd be good, yeah. That'd be a good orc name. That'd be awesome.
It would be. And
So, I mean, if you look over, let's use a little bit of stats here, because we are all about the stats. If you look at farm, you're going to have, who is it? Lassus actually coming out top on farm with 575. Unique behind Lassus, who is considered one of the best farming junglers in the game. Well done, sir. At 564. Then you've got, looks like, Dagars at 543, Annenster at 537, Weekend at 448, and Wolfie just above him at 473. So farm kind of all over the map. But player damage, pretty consistently close to. Lassus at 575, Unique at 564. Last place as far as player damage goes being Weekend at 448. And structure damage, since you mentioned structure damage, why don't we talk about it? Wolfie doing 37.4 structure damage per minute, above Lassus at 23.4, above Weekend at 12.5, above Dagars at 31.3, above Unique at 33.5, behind only Annenster at 108.3.
He hit a lot of towers.
Good lord, he hit towers.
3,100 tower damage this week across 3 games.
After 0, I think, for the previous 3. So.
Yeah, there was 0 structure damage. There were times where I'd look at it and go, no tower damage again.
I think Wolfie in general just had like a really good jungle week this week. Like, I mean, he was everywhere. He was places.
He was places. Yeah.
I'll say this in a little bit of review of the week. Thirst did not pick up a win this week, but they played a lot better than they have in recent weeks. Y'all did not pick up a win, but you played a lot better than you have in past weeks. On the other side of the spectrum, Snipe going 1 and 2. They did pick up a win this week. I have seen Snipe play better in most of their other weeks. Snipe just didn't. For me, Snipe just really didn't perform that well. Now that maybe moving Incon into the mid and adjusting for Allied, who's played with Incon forever, adjusting for Allied to playing with a new support player, but it requires almost a perfect storm for Snipe to get a top 2 seed. Really, it's going to probably come down to Cog Prime or Dig to be the 2nd seed, as it'd also be very difficult for Cog Red to lose their 1st seed.
Yep.
So
our overall scores for the jungle, first is still the guard. I think he's led every week except for that one Lassus breakout week.
Mhm.
Second place is, in fact, Lassus. Dagars having the 1672. Lassus coming in at 1512, over 150 points behind Dagars, so there's still a lot of room to catch up there. Then we have a tie, again, in jungle between Weekend and Annenster, both at 1477. Fourth place, or fifth place, depending on how you want to look at it, is Wolfie at 1284. And Unique sitting at 6th place with 1266. And that, my friends, wraps up the role analysis for the SPL Week 6. So, without anything else holding us back, without any further ado, let's get into our predictions. First game this week being Snipe versus Dig. A very important game, not because we need to determine who are our top 4 teams anymore, but because we need to see who first seed and second seed will be. What do you think, Crimson? Snipe or Dig?
I'm taking Dig over Snipe because I'm not sure Incon's a true mid laner, and Nah has transitioned to his role as a support mage, and it works for him. Give him Janus, give him Ra, and his Vulcan's much more aggressive, but his Vulcan is very scary. What do you think, Jaco? Dig or Snipe?
Definitely Dig. I don't really like the whole role swap that Snipe did when they were like finally having some really good solid success with Jerb, so definitely Dig.
I would have to agree with you guys. I think this is a 3-way go for Dig. I think Snipe's going to continue to struggle this week. I think the transition is going to be hard on them. If they do coalesce, it's not going to happen this fast. Unless they do some serious work over the next 2 days.
The other game they have for the day is Cog Prime Chunks, and I'm taking Cog Prime because they are on a tear.
I am right behind you. Cog Prime is going to take this one over the Chunks. Jacob?
Cog Prime is kind of scary, so I feel the fear that Chunks are feeling right now. But I mean, Chunks have been playing well, so they'll more than likely put up a really good fight. But yeah, still Cog Prime for sure.
Cool.
So
Next day we have Cog Red versus the Chunks. Cog Red, sorry Chunks, but it's Cog Red. Yes, they had off game against Cog Prime, but that is their sister team, the team who knows them the best. I give it to Cog Red.
Jacob, what do you think?
So they immediately fight Cog Red after Cog Prime?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, definitely Cog Red.
I'm taking Cog Red because I haven't seen Cog Red lose the pick ban phase yet. And Chunks bring out weird strats, but if you give Thor to the Gars, you give the Boosh anything. You give Divios anything. You give Snoopy, Rom, you give Ionic, Geb. You're in pretty big trouble. So the other game we have is Cog Prime against Thirst. I apologize, Jacob, but I am taking Cog Prime on this one because either you're going to have to ban Omega's Guan Yu and let through something else, or he's going to get it. And I really feel for Osmodos having to play against Omega's Guan Yu.
Oh yeah. I mean, me personally, who would win against that? I mean, maybe that Jacob Malfoy guy is going to be doing like pretty well, but I mean, I'll probably lean with Cog winning, but whatever. That's you guys so divide.
Hopefully, what I'm hoping is that we'll start seeing a continuous improvement for you guys over on Thirst, but it is Cog Prime. Cog Prime is Cog Prime. They've been dominant since before the launch tournament, so I'll give this one to Cog Prime. The next day, we start off with Dig versus Cog Red. Should be a very good game. I have to think about who I want to pick on this one, actually.
Since I was been writing an article all day, I know who my pick is, and I'm taking Dig over Cog Red because Zapman is playing out of this world right now. I would take Zapman over Snoopy, and that's not just the fanboy in me saying that. Zapman is outperforming Snoopy. I mean, Cog Red's losses, I think 3 of them are to Dig, and 1 of them is to Cog Prime. I don't think they've beaten Dig yet.
I think they only have 3 losses.
Yeah, they only have 3 losses, so they've beaten Dig once. Sorry.
But one of them, they lost to Dig twice, but one of those losses was a DQ when things were going downhill for Dig. Let's be honest.
Okay. Oh, yeah, they probably would not have lost that game. But Dig's beaten, whether you count it as a loss or whether you count it as a DQ or not, Dig's the only team to have beaten them more than one.
This is true.
So,
this is true.
I'm predicting that to be their loss for the week. So.
All right, Jacob?
I really like I really like how loyal you are to Dig, but I would still definitely give it to Cog Red. I think Snoopy's I mean, he either breaks out or he does okay, but I feel like if he gets Rom against Dig, then I mean I think they'll take it for sure. I mean I've seen him bully Zapman before, so I'll give it to Cog Red.
This one's a tough one for me because Dig has done pretty much nothing but improve since week 1, and Cog Red just came off of a rough game, but then again they are Cog Red. And while I agree with you, Zapman can outperform Snoopy, all it's going to take is the Gars doing a dunk from Thor. That's all it takes. And if he doesn't do a dunk from Thor, he's going to do a pull with Mercury, or he's going to jump in there as Kali, or he's going to hide by their lane as Serket, wait for them to overextend and kill them. At the same time, Zatman and Dare are performing phenomenally well in the dual lane. Then again, there's also more going on than just that. So I'm going to give this one to Dig. I want to see Dig come out on top on this one. It's going to be a rough battle, but I think Dig might actually come up on top.
Speaking of Circuit, though, is the next SPL games going to be played on the new patch, or?
More than likely, and that's only speculation from me, but I can't see why they wouldn't be.
I really don't want Circuit to come back, but
I expect to see the rise of Circuit and Pick Banner.
Yeah, I'm cool with Heavy Hammer being sort of done with at the start, at least.
So the other game we have for our Friday night is Thirst Snipe, and I am taking Thirst. Not just because Jaco's here. I'm taking Thirst because your team is too talented to finish 1-19. You have too much talent. Snipe's on a backslide, and y'all are starting to coalesce. So I am taking Thirst.
This is actually one of the, well, I mean, obviously the other ones were against, like, COG and all that, which is, like, I'm like, all right, it makes sense that they would win that. But this is actually kind of like a toss-up of just, like, who is going to play better in this game. So I'll go with Thirst because I'm on Thirst, but it really could go either way, I feel like.
Snipes, roster change.
Yeah, I really don't like it, and I feel like that might be where they lose like a lot of games because of that.
I think you will be able to dominate in the lane against Incon. Incon is a great player, but he's not familiar with mid. There's little intricacies that he's going to lack on that you've been playing on for 6 weeks now. I think you'll win in the mid lane, and I think your duo lane has a chance to beat him. And Osmos, if he continues to perform in the solo, assuming he stays in the solo, and assuming everybody else stays where they're going to stay, I think you guys got a shot, so I'm going to throw this one to Thirst.
I appreciate it, and I mean, it's all about the confidence, too, because we all saw Incon, he could have easily landed a Kukulkan ult on, like, the Athena support before. He's kind of like, yeah, what if I miss? You know, I just got to be scary in the mid lane. That's all part of the plan. Don't tell anybody about this, though.
Just use that announcer voice you were using before, and talk to him for 5 minutes beforehand, and he'll F6 at 1.
That's why we need global comms and Smite so I can do that. I'm like, ooga booga, I'm in the mid lane. Ooga booga booga.
I love it.
So our first game on Saturday is COG Red Snipe, and I am taking COG Red because I think this is their revenge game, and I do not want to be on the receiving end of COG Red's revenge.
COG Red.
Definitely COG Red, and I almost forgot that Snipe really did take that game away from him, and it was mostly because COG Red just underestimated him, so yeah, I'll give it to COG Red for sure.
COG Red lost to Snipe?
No, COG Red doesn't have a loss to Snipe, but we're
oh, that was COG Prime, you're right. That was COG Prime that lost, okay. Yeah, you're right.
But I'm referring to the fact that COG Red lost the night before. I'm predicting COG Red lost the night before to Dig, so don't want to see him angry, because that's...
all these COGs, man, I'm just getting all mixed up now. Jesus.
Just wait for COG Blue, that'll be a thing.
Oh
yeah.
No.
Oh, don't you guys know that Thirst is actually getting sponsored by COG, and we're like COG Black.
There you go.
You get to keep your knee banner, please. Please.
You know, we'll have to see about that. And of course, you know, COG Black, it's black with a Q. Just so you know that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
There you go.
Cool. Snipe COG Red. Is anybody picking Snipe on this one?
Definitely COG Red.
Cool.
Definitely
Thirst v Dig. I have to throw this one over to Dig. Apologies to Jaco. But as I said, I think Dig's going to beat COG Red. The chance that you'll have that Thirst will have to beat Dig is that Dig will focus all their attention on beating COG Red, because a win versus Thirst doesn't matter as much as a win against COG Red does. Wins, of course, matter, but if you can knock them down even a little bit, it helps you. Dig needs every win. COG Prime needs every win. Snipe needs every win. Dig needs every win.
Yeah, I mean, Thirst, definitely, we have a lot of team experience needed to get used with a solid roster for once. So yeah, I mean, I'll definitely give it a Dig for sure. A lot of practice needed for Thirst before we'll become true contenders.
And
appreciate the honesty.
I think the synergy gap between teams, since y'all haven't had a solid roster, but I think if you keep the roster you currently have with El Chacho, Astro Squared, yourself, Wolfie, and Osmos, is the best Thirst roster we've seen so far. I haven't seen a win yet, but I think if you keep this team, then I would definitely be scared if I were a Challengers Cup team. So
I agree. You see those little glimmers of hope, you know? They kind of
Absolutely.
like flicker, and you're like, oh.
Absolutely. Let's go over to our last 2 games, Chunks v Thirst, and I once again am giving this one to Thirst.
as am I.
And here's why. If you don't win against Cog, you're going to win against Snipe. If you don't win against Snipe, you're going to win against Chunks. Your team is good enough that you're not going to end 1-19, and I firmly believe that. So you're going to get a win, and you could get 2. You could get 3 if you play the cards right, and play the gods right, more importantly. But I give Chunks Thirst to Thirst.
And I'm giving Thirst over Chunks because I think Wolfie wants to go out with his last hurrah and go out with a bang because he's going to Challenge Cup, and Wolfie kind of brought all y'all in, and we haven't seen the best of him in the jungle yet, and that scares the living daylights out of me.
Jacob?
Well, you know, here's the thing, all right? What we don't want to see is complete sabotage in the solo lane. We don't talk about that in a Ja game, by the way. We never talk about that in a Ja game. That in a Ja game never happened, all right? I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, if we get solid practice during this week, I feel like we could definitely take a game away from Chunks. But it's all about, you know, no sabotage.
Right.
Which is what Elbro says whenever something happens that doesn't really go according to plan and he's the one to die, he just yells out sabotage.
I would love to be in comms to hear that.
Oh, God, it is hilarious.
I'll just sit in comms, I'll mute myself and just listen and wait for the sabotage call.
Oh,
And
yeah.
finally, the winner-take-all game, at least how I am predicting it, to determine 2nd and 3rd seed.
I
The
love
classic rivalry, Dig, Cog.
I love this matchup. This is the matchup I came into the scene with. It was Dig and Cog. Every now and then Snipe would make a run for a finals, and then Cog would kick him back down, and Dig would take a game off of Cog, and then Cog would kick him back down, and then Dig came out in the launch tournament. I loved watching these 2 teams play. Obviously, the rosters are a little bit different, but the cores, I think the cores are there. Lassus and Zapman making up the core for Dig. Everybody except Jeff Inland making up the core for Cog. But I love this matchup, and I'm going to have to side with the fanboy in me and go with Cog.
And I'm siding with Dig, also for the fanboy in me. So, Jaco, since I guess you're the only non-fanboy in the room, you're going to have to break the tie.
Oh, man. It really is like a toss-up of a game.
Yeah.
I guess I'll probably go with Cog Prime, but I feel like the one person that's really going to kind of shake things up is like the jungler on one of the teams. It's like if Andy does well, then you know Cog's gonna win. If Lassus does well, then Dig's gonna win. That's how I feel it's gonna go. Cool. If they both do poorly, then who knows, man? All right, maybe Zapman will just flex, and that'll be the end of it. Who knows?
Omega.
I'm still giving it to Cog, though.
Omega. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, Omega, that is true. Yeah.
I love Xing. He's a phenomenal player, but he's not Omega on Guan Yu. And if he's not Omega on Guan Yu, then he's not Omega on Vomana.
I don't think Xing's really been practicing Guan either, so yeah, that's...
Xing's Chalk. Xing's Bakasura. Xing's Loki.
When has he played Loki, though? I thought he's kind of more like a bruiser now.
I see it in stream all the time.
Yeah, but seeing it on stream is much different than seeing it at a competitive level. We will have to just wait and see what happens in this week's games. Jake, go, real quick before we wrap up. Where can people find you at, good sir?
The only place you can ever find me is in random Twitch streams or on Twitter at Jaco Malfoy.
Awesome. Well, make sure to go give him a follow. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate it, guys. It's been fun.
It's been a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed yourself. For everyone here at Next Wave Gaming, myself, Wolfpack89, and Crimson and White, we want to say thank you for tuning in for this week's SPL review. Tune in next week for the last SPL review, and then we will have nothing but other rando tournaments to cover. So we will see what happens in the Smite esports scene up until the regionals. We will be covering Worlds for you, so make sure you give us a subscribe button and a follow on Twitter at NextWave Gaming, and make sure to find each one of us individually on Twitter. Links will be in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.